Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon are some of Game Freak's most difficult games, but what they don't tell you is that there are plenty of different and unique ways to encounter great Pokemon to help balance it out. I'm going to be showcasing each and every method in today's hardcore Nuzlocke, from SOS battles to overworld encounters and much more. And hopefully I'll route things well enough, because I'm really not trying to wipe at Marowak again. Given my fear of the deadly Alolan Dancer, it might be in my best interest to pick Popplio as my gift encounter for the run. So you'd be right to wonder why I chose Litten instead. Well, I felt like it. But Lift is gonna need some help to take down one of the hardest bosses in the whole franchise, Teacher Emily. I know from experience that taking her Popplio out with a Litten alone won't work, at least without EV abuse from the Festival Plaza, and I'd like to hold off on that if possible. Therefore, I need to cash in my next encounter right away, the random encounter. I'm only getting one Mon from each method here, so I would have preferred to delay this, but at least Route 1 has a pretty sizable pool of Pokemon. Route 1 proper is functionally impossible to avoid an encounter for, meaning under the purest of pure rule sets, I'd be stuck with the staged Grubbin, which is kind of tempting to count as an in-game event category, but like many others, I'll be counting the outskirts as a separate location, as people do for both parts of Pinwheel Forest, for example. And in said outskirts, we run into Inkay. I really wanted to get one of the two water types, maybe even a Wingull for future Drizzle support, but having access to Reflect and Foul Play right away is amazing, and I shouldn't complain. Probably. Actually, I might have lucked out, because aside from being able to Oonga Boonga my way through Teacher Emily's Popplio, Inkandum's superiority also gives me a nice time against a Lima. After taking minimal damage from his Yungoose's Pursuit, Inkandum sets up the Reflect, which I thought would be the extent of his bulk, but instead, due to our newly set screen, Ilima wanted to weaken our defenses and went for Leer. Unfortunately for him, Inkandum actually has Contrary, which gets his defenses raised afterwards instead. Given that insanely good start, it's simply a foul play sweep from there. Wow, I heavily underestimated Inkay. And we could keep that exact same strategy going against the Totem Gumshoos, but with Super Fang and Bite on the table, I want something a little more reliable. And oddly, that something lies right outside the trial chamber. There are trades scattered throughout the whole game with at least one perfect IV guaranteed on each of them. For some reason, the best of the bunch is the very first one, the Max Attack Brave Hawlucha from Route 2, Cha. I'm gonna change the name, but wow, what an insane get. The Brick Break TM helps too. And yeah, Hade handily eviscerates the Totem Gumshoos, even through its aura boosted defense. Part of me thinks the crit wasn't necessary, but I'm kinda glad that I won't have to know. And surprise surprise, Holo was a sweep. I was kinda surprised Hade's Aerial Ace missed out on the Oko on 2 of his Pokemon, but I guess that's what happens when enemies start min-maxing their EVs. I knew it'd come up at some point, but I didn't think it'd be this early. I won't be going ham with them just yet, but the Mantine Surf minigame does give access to infinite BP, along with EV medications and tutor moves. I mean, the EV medicine can't even max out the stats just yet, so it's kinda whatever. Anyways, the team is pretty beefed up right now, so before long, Dexio becomes foul play fodder, and Hao is, well, he's not exactly as threatening as he will be later. While we're at Peniola Town, I pick up my 20th Totem sticker, and return to Heihei City to pick up my one and only Totem sticker Mon, Totem the Gumshoos. Yeah, things are a little awkward between her and Hade, but not quite as awkward as Totem having a minus attack nature. I'm sure that'll be fine. Next, the fight with Gladion felt pretty unfair, and before I knew it, it was time for the next totem trial. Araquanid's bulk is typically a huge problem, but this time around, well, it still is. At first glance, Hade's Sharpbeak boosted Aerial Ace looks like it did about 60%. Not bad, but Araquanid's Rain boosted Bubble unfortunately got a crit, doing even more to us. Furthermore, because of the damage we dealt, Masquerain came to support the totem instead of the less threatening Dewpider. This is bad because it has Intimidate, and now I'm not sure if a follow-up attack will take out the Water Skimming Spider. Regardless, we've got to take advantage of a Roost and start healing. Fortunately, Hade dodges the Stun Spore and doesn't get crit by the next bubble, and it looks like Roost is out healing the damage. In order to give us another opening, I need to continue roosting up for the time being. We managed to do so, and get scary faced as well as paralyzed along the way, but Hade clutches up and powers through to land a second Aerial Ace. With the Intimidate, it's ever so slightly too weak to finish off the boss, and at this point we need to switch, which I really didn't plan on doing. Between Bubble and Bug Bite, Lift and Eandom, I renamed him by the way, are nowhere near safe to switch in. That leaves me with Gotem, who ends up taking the next combination of attacks rather well. And with Masquerain's Bug Bite coming out first, that'll just barely activate our Berry Juice, which will keep Gotem out of kill range. Wait, where's our heal? Somehow Gotem held on and managed to take out Araquanid, but what item am I holding? Oh, the silver powder. Really getting our mileage out of that one, huh? With Araquanid down, the newly evolved Lift is safe to clean up the trial. Bug Bite is their only offensive move, so even in the rain, a couple Fire Fangs earn us our second government legal Z Crystal. If you liked the video so far and want to show me some support, leaving a like and hyping the video if you're on mobile would go a long way. And maybe subscribe while you're down there too. I've got plenty more videos like this already uploaded and on the way. Anyway, thank you. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think that fight would be so hectic. I'll admit, I'm partially to blame, but however tough Araquanid is, Marowak is always at least 3 times that. We in the Nuzlocking community call that PEMDAS. It's not like I'm without decent checks to the next totem, but if I want to go deathless, then I'm gonna need a little more than that. There are 3 possible encounters I could pick up right now to increase our chances of success, and I'll limit myself to 1 to see where that one takes us. Exclusive to the Alola games, and available after defeating the first totem, is the SOS battle mechanic. Basically, if you beat a Pokemon within an inch of its life, it'll start calling for backup, and this is where many exclusive Pokemon reside. Originally, I really wanted to take advantage of that funny level 9 Salamence encounter, but with it being a 1% SOS mon off of a 1% spawn, I could be at that grind for hours. Alternatively, I've got plenty of SOS exclusive water types to choose from, some of which include the Slowbros and the Clam fam, but ultimately, I've decided to settle down and attempt to get Whiscash. What I didn't know at the time was that this hunt would be a little trickier than I thought. Barboach is only a 10% encounter from fishing normally, so I have to reset the area over and over until I get Rippling Water. Rarer spawns are more likely to appear then. On top of that, I was stalling forever against this fish that did spawn, and she only summoned a single ally. Which wasn't Whiscash, by the way. Side note, I am only counting the SOS exclusives as encounters, so the Barboach here doesn't count. A second ally never appeared, so I figured I was doing something wrong, and I was, kinda. Apparently, Pokemon can only call a single SOS buddy unless you use the Adrenaline Orb item. But this is a hardcore Nuzlocke, so no items in battle. Each opportunity to roll a Whiscash just got significantly longer, which is why I'm so glad that one spawned on the very next chance. Yeah, spawning Salamence would have taken a week. Welcome in, WOS. Maybe you count as my fishing encounter too. Actually, I just decided. He won't. Just like the would-be level 9 Salamence, WOS is what some would call an illegal evolution. No one's illegal to me, so that's no problem. And now, the freshest catfish in Alola is able to take care of Kiawe's 2 preemptive battles no problem. The leftovers I picked up from the Battle Royale Dome help offset the damage we've taken and put us in a great position for Marowak. Knowing this monster leads with Detect 99% of the time, I could get WOS to set up Amnesia for free. Now Venoshock and Hex will be heavily weakened should they use those moves. I was tempted to Protect stall the leftovers recovery, but I'm glad I didn't. Once the single opponent becomes double, that's where we use our first Protect. From there, Marowak abstains from attacking by detecting, and the Salazzle's poison gas actually misses. Lucky. After that, a single target magnitude 7 obliterates the Partnermon, turning this back into a 1v1. Things do get a little socially awkward with us going back and forth protecting on opposite turns, but WOS's bulk and recovery guarantees his dominance, even if Marowak got a crit along the way. 3 total water pulses later, and my easiest Marowak trial ever concludes. Again, a Salamence would have been really cool to have, even if the grind was technically possible, but WOS has the spirit of a pseudo. No, maybe even a full-on box art. Did I just spoil Winds and Waves? Lurantis is a slightly different story. Normally I just breeze past it, but this time it's gonna take a little more attention. I'm also attempting to do this run without Z moves, so no Infernal Overdrive makes this even more precarious. Lift could get some damage going on the Lurantis, but it'd be a minuscule amount that'll just bait the Comfey to come out. Between Sunny Day boosted Synthesis and Floral Healing, the totem would never go down. So instead, Lift is going the support route and using Growl. He could tank a few hits and permanently lower their attack. The same goes for Kecleon as he tags in on our passive turns, thanks to Growl always hitting both opponents. In return, they set up the Sunny Day after all, so once Lift takes another X-Scissor, we use Fire Fang to see what the sun boosted damage can do. Not exactly a one-shot, but surely a two-shot. Kecleon begins using Ancient Power, which we can brush off for now. Sadly though, with the sun up, Synthesis is able to ever so slightly out-heal our Fire Fangs. Not the greatest scenario to be in, but there's no harm in stalling out their healing while fishing for a burn. But sadly we never get it, and come a couple turns later, there would be harm. Gotem tags in, and thanks to the help from Growl, she takes the attacks while continuing Lift's strat of fishing for the burn. Again, we never get it, but because Lurantis has finally run out of her 5 syntheses, the totem is on borrowed time. We don't have any stab to utilize Gotem's adaptability ability, so I switched to Haid to close this out. Normally the Dizzy Punch critting and landing the confusion would be incredibly annoying, but I actually forgot to re-equip Brick Break. So honestly, most of the annoyance comes from me. Either way, WOS is completely free to finish off the Kecleon, winning us a somewhat consistent totem fight. I'm not gonna lie, sometime around here I was looking ahead for my next encounter, and my heart sunk. It's on me, but in Coney City I could pick up a fossil. I had originally planned on resurrecting a Shieldon, partially because it has Metal Burst, which is insane against totems, and partially because it's so cute. Unfortunately, it's exclusive to Moon, and I switched to playing Ultra Sun last second so I could mix it up and use Totem Gumshoos for the first time. Well, we may already have a bulky water type, but Omanite could still stand out on its own. Surely. His name is Ossel. Ossel's gonna be on the bench for a very long time, starting with our Kahuna fight against Olivia. Though in this case, most of the party will be too. Haid has just learned Flying Press, and uses that along with Brick Break to prove that his early game presence wasn't a fluke. Man, Hawlucha's so cool. With that, the level cap finally enters the 30s, meaning there are 3 new changes to our team. First of all, Eandom, I changed his name by the way, did you remember that? Can evolve and actually be used now. His base stat total from his first form wasn't doing him any favors. And now is as good a time as any to engage with the second team change, which will be an encounter from the Poképelago. This little side area lets me slowly stock up on beans! And with enough of them, we just might entice some decent Pokemon to join us. And that's a seal. I mean, it's not the best mon that could appear. The reason I did this now was because entering Ula Ula Island unlocks a larger pool of encounters, none of which would be very great. I was fishing for a Mr. Mime, Jinx, or Flaffy, which had the highest chance to spawn before going to Ula Ula, but Seal turns into a decent enough ice type anyways, and I've only sort of used it that one time. Could be fun in Alola. I've just gotta come back later to see if they stuck around and... Well, I guess we weren't good enough for the Seal's standards. You know, the third change can wait. After all that, I just want to battle How now. I don't know if any of the encounter methods thus far have been new to you, but I for one did learn something today. I was under the assumption that the dynamic overworld weather only became annoying and affected battles in Scarlet and Violet, but I now know that it's a thing in Alola too. The thought had crossed my mind before the battle started, yet I went through with it anyways. I didn't think it would have that much of an effect on me anyways, until Lift's Fire Fang was revealed to be a 4, maybe 5 hit kill. On top of that, Dartrix's Pluck did over half. Alright, maybe I should have started min-maxing by now. We're at a high enough level that we could have easily grinded on Route 1 anyways. Alright, time to steer. You hate to see it on the second turn, but here we are. Gotem has moderately decent bulk, and should be able to take a couple hits before landing Super Fang. Didn't think I'd need to land that on a non-totem. Dartrix still puts up a fight, and I commit to using Fire Punch to fish for the burn. I would have switched to Haid, but I don't even want to know how badly Pluck would have hurt. After that turn, however, I know we're in Bloom Doom range, which is exactly what How was looking for. So now I could go to Haid, while Bloom Doom still hurts a lot, to be honest. I had gotten rid of Aerial Ace for Flying Press, as I was not anticipating a matchup like this, but with Dartrix's invested bulk, at this point I have to risk the Flying Press miss. Luckily, Haid locks in, but the battle's only just begun. We've got Alolan Raichu next, who's usually the biggest threat in the fight, so I send out WOS. It might have been in my best interest to pivot with Eandom to absorb the Psychic, but I really thought we would be seeing Electro Ball. Guess I wasn't thinking, really. Fortunately, we've got Protect and Leftovers to still keep WOS safe outside of crits. And when he goes on the offensive, his Magnitude rolls an 8. Thank goodness, get that thing out of here. Tauros is surprisingly no big deal. Once I Protect Stall, more healing just in case, Ossel could make her debut. I didn't think it'd come to this honestly, but her Rock type coupled with the Eviolite makes her a great counter. Tauros and his lacking move pool can only really watch as Brine already does over half. However, How sees that clear as day and hard switches to Vaporeon. I guess I should have seen that one coming. And this is very bad because the Rain of the Rain is at its scariest here. I have to believe Ossel lives a Water Pulse, because if we don't land a Leer, I don't know if we'll be able to take this evolution out. Fossil oddly outspeeds to lower the defenses, and she barely holds on. Wowee. We have to keep the risks going, but I really don't have a choice. Eandom switches in and thankfully stays in the green from a Water Pulse. He outspeeds the land's Foul Play, but even with the defense drop, it isn't an Oko. That's fine. We just need to dodge some bad RNG and... Come on, man. Well, I hate to say it, but there's no out from here without a death. We need a free switch to somebody who can outspeed and take Vaporeon out from this range, and all things considered, Totem has the least going for him. He was always our anchor, ready to help us set up or clean up whenever necessary, and he'll be doing that again one last time. Thank you for your service, Totem. I'm sorry about your doppelganger. I don't really have a great line, so I just let Hate get the kill. And, dude, Noibat, this thing is way scarier than it has any right to be. I was hoping to out-heal him with Roost, but Wing Attack does about the same damage. Guess I've got to switch again. WOS returns with the hopes of being the one to out-heal here, and he can in fact manage that, to be fair, but after landing Water Pulse and bringing them to the yellow, I realize that I'll just be losing another Mon to Tauros at this rate. I cannot take out Noibat and leave WOS in front of the Tauros as it stands, so I need to continue steering. With the rain, I can't rely on Lift, Ossel is too low to do anything, so I have to set up with one of the other two again. It's a little risky since Noibat is yoked to Heaven and back, but I send out Eandom, who goes from 33 to 20 on the next Wing Attack. We're risking some scary crits here, but I need to set up Reflect and... What? Oh, okay, well, Eandom survives on exactly 1 HP and manages to get the screen up. We're kinda getting somewhere. Now Hate shouldn't be taking as much damage from Wing Attack, and should be able to position himself pretty nicely at... Oh, come on! I mean, we still have Roost, which technically out-heals Wing Attack now, but by the time we attack, it'll be the final turn of Reflect. I kinda just have to go for Flying Press and hope that it doesn't miss, or else this run will be in huge trouble. On the final turn, Hate lands the Flying Press after all, and takes the KO on Noibat. Tauros finally returns, but even after the Intimidate, it's in range to get taken out by Brick Break. One of my scariest battles against How ever has concluded, and you know what? I'll say it. How's an op now? I had no idea it could rain permanently in that fight, and I had no idea it'd be so relevant. Between the Seal leaving after getting the ick from the Pelago, and Totem dying, the team's morale is beyond low. Fortunately, we can get a few encounters and rebuild, but with the RNG, I don't know if it'll be enough for the next couple totems. I actually could have gotten most of these special encounters already. The only reason I haven't was because getting them early could have locked me out of a better pool of options later on. We're in the mid-game now, so it's as good of a time as ever to bite the bullet. Or else, I guess. First, I'll start with the RNG-dependent encounter on Route 10, and this is a pretty important one. The 3DS games introduced ambush encounters, which basically flips the roles of a random encounter. The Pokemon encounters you. The variation of this method on Route 10 is the Rustling Tree, and I could have gotten someone from Dust Clouds or Rustling Grass earlier on, but I wanted a particular guy from Route 10. I'd very much like a Skarmory to tackle me at full speed, but it only has a 20% chance to spawn, and we got the 30% encounter instead. Honestly, it's not Fearow, so I shouldn't complain. I was hesitant to get a fishing encounter, given my acquisition of WOS, but I thought about it, and this big guy wasn't caught on my fishing hook, so he remains to be just an SOS Mon. I'm fishing here at the Akala outskirts in hopes of getting a Volt-absorbed Chinchou, as I'm fully aware of how good those could be. But unfortunately, we get one of the most consistently good Pokemon in the franchise. Considering I committed to fishing instead of getting the QR scan encounter Honedge from the route, this is probably for the best, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about the type overlap on the team. Speaking of QR scans and type overlap, by scanning 10 QR codes from the Pokedex on Fridays while my feet are on Ula Ula Island, I could get Monferno to spawn. Originally, I contemplated not only Honedge, but also a Marshtomp, a Litwick, or maybe even the Aquajet Squirtle encounter. I've come to the conclusion that I already have enough water types, even for a Swampert, and both Honedge and Litwick have late and awkward evolutions. I figure it'd be better if I had another fast option at this point, and hey, this Monferno also comes with Power-Up Punch. It was actually doing numbers to my team. And finally, the last encounter for now, we've got the in-game event. Alola has plenty of side quests scattered along the region, with a few of them offering special encounters. I really wanted to count the Eevee Egg as an in-game event, but I felt like that would be too much of a stretch. It's more of a gift in the game anyways. I also considered mons like the Beware that invades Hauoli's Maw, but I don't need another physically bulky mon or a fighting type. In Ultra Sun, that pretty much leaves me with the 7 Mysteries quest at the Trainer School. Among other things, such as showcasing the real-life horrors of Drifloon, I can encounter a Ghastly. This was a tough decision, but I ultimately chose Ghastly over Drifloon because I figured Drifblim would be too passive. And most of its good moves are locked to the late game move tutors. Gengar, on the other hand, can be great right away. We've cobbled together a nice set of Pokemon, and while they may be Pokemon's equivalent of the annoying popular table, I'm hoping they could keep it together for now, because there are not many more encounters left. Also, with the EV training gear from the Battle Royale, it's time we join the dark side and start min-maxing ourselves. I didn't want it to come to this, but I may have been too optimistic. Given the expansion of our team, and Eandam's relatively new evolution, I can finally start using a strategy that I've been looking forward to since I caught Eandam. And that strategy begins with Topsy-Turvy. Every Totem Pokemon from here onward will have terrifying aura boosts, including Omni boosts in our near future. Togedemaru here only has a +2 to defense, but that's still pretty scary. Thanks to Eandam's Topsy-Turvy, that +2 will be switched to a -2 in a matter of moments. That's not all, because even though Skarmory shows up and is able to set Stealth Rocks and Tailwind support, Eandam continues to do his thing. Reflect mitigates every single damaging move on the other side, and a well-timed Thief can take the totem's only mode of recovery in its Citrus Berry. I then switched to WOS on a Spiky Shield to make sure they never use Zing Zap, and take that opportunity to send out Mishing to lower Togedemaru's and Skarmory's attack. I know, I'm like a Saturday morning villain. Eandam safely returns and heals up Skarmory's attack with the stolen Citrus Berry in hopes of setting up Reflect again. And by golly, he does it! Eandam putting the monster in Pocket Monster over here. This sets WOS perfectly to return, and eventually take out the Togedemaru with a single Bulldoze. I won't lie though, even with all of their debuffs, the opposing dynamic duo had still put up a fight. Between Torment preventing us from spamming Bulldoze, and Spiky Shield and Bounce preventing Bulldoze from landing when we could use it, this section goes on for a while. Fortunately, with leftovers, it really just ended up being a trial of patience. But WOS is the GOAT, and the totem did get taken out after all. And when it came to taking out the Skarmory, I let QR Man out of his ball to do the job. Originally, I wanted to let him out earlier, but with Bounce to account for, this was the earliest it could happen. Alrighty, time for Guzma. Even in his first fight, where he only has 2 Pokemon, we've got to play very particularly. My game plan revolves around taking advantage of Glissapod's emergency exit. Pambush's payback will always do double damage since we're so slow, and when the time is right, we could get out of there with Volt Switch. However, there is a problem that we run into, in that our damage trades aren't nearly as nice as I thought they'd be. And we would have been mostly fine had it not been for that defense drop. Yikes. Had we been able to use Volt Switch on turn 3, we would both be forced to switch, and I could get Eandam in for free. I still want to do that in order to bait Bug Buzz from Masquerain, and pivoting to Mishing on the next attack allows us to go through the plan. On Eandam's entrance, Glissapod uses Sucker Punch, so then Eandam activates Emergency Exit with Foul Play. Now with the other bug on the field, I could safely switch to Haid as planned, who, at the level cap and holding a Sharp Beak, only just barely outspeeds and barely gets the kill with Aerial Ace. Glissapod doesn't last much longer after that, and you know what? I'm kinda tired of steering. It'd be really nice if I could sit back and relax for a minute, but given that I've picked up so many of the encounters, many of them being pretty great thanks to the EV berries from Route 10 letting me fully customize them, there isn't much for us to do before challenging the next Totem Mimikyu. Our only real stop is the Ula Ula Beach move tutor, and you know what? These moves are pretty nice, I'll give him that. Mimikyu bears witness to our other toxic totem strategy, but this time it's against Mimikyu, so I don't feel that bad. Now, I did consider having Eandam use Topsy-Turvy, but a faster leech life from this colossal copycat would hit my squid so hard that they would probably go extinct. So instead, I'll play a little less aggressively. Pambush has the bulk to use a couple moves, including the Indomitable Reflect to weaken every opposing move. After that, I considered committing to breaking the disguise and doing damage with Gyro Ball, which would be very strong here, especially with their speed boost, but I opt to stick with the plan and use Volt Switch to get out of there at the end of the turn. Glad I did, because Mimikyu's second Shadow Claw got the crit, and Bayonet landed the Screech. Man, that was close. Mishing enters damageless, intimidates as usual, and uses his new Ula Ula Beach tutor move, Iron Head. What a coincidence, they were teaching that right around the corner. Even with the defense buff, that move is a 3-hit. But you know that Reflect won't last forever. Pambush returns on a very weak Play Rough, but more importantly, a Will-O-Wisp from Bayonet. Okay, well, even with protected leftovers, I don't think we're getting another screen up now. But hey, another Intimidate is the next best thing. Mishing stays in with the hopes of finishing off Mimikyu, and gets close, but Bayonet is on Demon Time and uses Curse. Alright, that's fine. Plan C. By level 35, Lift could have evolved into the wildly controversial Incineroar already, but I decided to delay that for this fight specifically. Evolving would grant Lift the Dark typing, meaning he wouldn't resist the moves Play Rough or Leech Life anymore. Sure, Shadow Claw could still crit, but staying as a Torracat while holding the Eviolite meant that Lift would resist the Totem's most problematic moves, while having comparable bulk. As planned, Shadow Claw takes out the semi-alive Scoundrel, and Bayonet just doesn't even give me the satisfaction. That's so rude, honestly. Lift isn't even running Intimidate, Knockoff, or Parting Shot. I would if I could though, not gonna lie. As always, the defeat of Alola's 6th questionably maintained pseudo-deity means that we've hit our stride and can more or less breeze through the next few bosses. I don't take any joy in reducing these guys to 1 or 2 sentences, but it's out of my control. It's a part of the game design. First off, my 2 fire first partner Pokemon evolve, which doesn't really need to be pointed out, I just wanted a place to put them on screen. Gavent gets to do something while I send her out against Plumeria, and no problems arise, honest. Guzma is slightly more threatening in battle too, but now that my Pokemon are way stronger, I'll just go over his 3rd fight later. The fights are all very similar. They needed to put a Gladion fight somewhere, and forced one here, but all of his Pokemon are mainly for show. We've got a lot of answers for Nanu's Dark types, and between Lift, Haid, and QR Man, this 3rd Kahuna fight was always going to be a breeze. Faba is defeated, but he was lampshading me, so I had to defeat him again. And wow, there's Guzma again already? Man, it's a good thing there was all that dialogue to space his battle out, right guys? As for our 2nd fight, Haid had become fully capable of soloing Guzma on his own. We had picked up the Acrobatics TM beforehand, and even though we couldn't hold an item, the trade-off was worth it. This time around, we weren't so lucky, because now Guzma owns a Vikavolt. It's not the scariest thing in the world, but it has a really good moveset with insane special coverage. To play around it, I need to utilize WOS and his electric immunity to pivot. He enters on a Thunderbolt, which baits an Energy Ball that Lift is really good at taking. Vikavolt doesn't have any super effective moves for my starter, but a Bug Buzz crit would be just as bad. However, we got lucky and Lift flinches Guzma's Railgun Bug before they get the chance. I'll take it. After Vikavolt gets taken out, WOS helps with positioning once more to get Haid in on Pinsir's X-Scissor. From that moment onward, it's a repeat of Battle 2, with Haid spamming Acrobatics from there. Crazy how I got this guy before my first trial. Lusamine, unlike all of the other battles leading up to her, makes me nervous on every single playthrough. Her diverse team coupled with its random move AI means that this could be the easiest fight of the game, or I could predict a move wrong and get rolled. That, in part with her super threatening Milotic, means it's time to gamble. Yippee! And for Lusamine's first 3 Mons, we score jackpots as each of them go down without putting up a fight. Or rather, without getting kills. But same difference. Milotic is one of the only threats anyways. This thing is free to rip Hydro Pumps and Dragon Pulses to its heart's content, but who knows when it'll do which. QR Man opts to get some chip damage first by U-turning out of there, as Pambush only takes a measly Icy Wind after all. Protecting Leftovers helps us maintain as always, which is followed up by Pambush eating a Dragon Pulse head-on, then setting up Light Screen. A Hydro Pump would hurt even Pambush a lot, so this is perfect. But still, the Hydro Pump takes a chunk off of Pambush. Wow. Even though it would boost Milotic's defenses thanks to Marble Scale, we return that damage by setting Toxic. The tick damage after every turn will essentially cancel out the Marble Scale, and a slow Volt Switch gets Haid in damageless. A single Acrobatics does it from there, which leaves us with Lusamine's final Pokemon. Beware has as many blessings as it does boons. It's essentially 4 times weak to Flying Press, specifically, but Fluffy will keep it alive. Zen Headbutt is their strongest move, but we should survive it even if they decide to use it. I think. Lots of RNG at play. So Haid and I simply play into it because I'm tired of overthinking. The quad effective Flying Press slams Beware head on, yet she survives in the red. Ultimately, they do use Zen Headbutt after all, which misses out on the crit. Phew. From there, Haid lets me finally unclench my teeth. There's only one last island to explore, so I should probably seek out the final encounters now if I want to actually use them. These 2 are a bit of a stretch, so I debated with myself on whether or not to count them, but ultimately decided to have a little fun and go with them anyways. The first of the 2 is probably the most anticlimactic, especially because this method could only possibly spawn 1 Pokemon. Sword and Shield had the right idea and expanded the encounter pool, but in Alola while scavenging berries, you get jumped by Crabrawler, and nothing else. If Haid wasn't available before the first trial, Crary would have had my back. Now for an honorable mention, I was gonna include serial codes and encounter the Muna that was given out in honor of the Pokemon Global Link shutting down, but this one didn't feel as true to the game. Sorry, Muna fans. So finally we are left with one last encounter method, which I'm gonna dub bounty hunting. Really, they're Pokedex quests, but my name sounds cooler. On every island except for the last one, a handful of NPCs can be found requesting a Pokedex entry for certain Pokemon. From there you could go on the hunt and report back to them to claim the bounty. Honestly, I didn't know about these until making the video, and the pool of encounters here are pretty neat. I was gonna go for the Garchomp bounty, but ultimately decided against it because, like, the popular table is already full. Instead, I wanted to be a little quirkier than that and hunt for Minior. I could have gotten this wonderful little mon as far back as my previous batch of encounters, but at the time I was leaning towards the Garchomp, in case the run exploded. Luckily that didn't happen, so in case of the Minior exploding, I used my one and only Master Ball. We got the Indigo form, so worth it. Technically there is one more encounter we could get later on, but this should functionally be it. Unless something goes horribly wrong. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. After battling everyone in Pony Wilds to claim the Focus Ash, just in case, we continue our way through Vast Pony Canyon. Having almost 2 full sets of Pokemon in rotation makes EXP management very manageable, with the final 3 battles ultimately only expanding my playtime rather than posing any challenges. Aside from the fact that I'm lying. Yeah, these final 3 are particularly tough, consisting of a wide variety of min-maxed mons with decent coverage. The final guy, Veteran Eric, had me on the back foot most of the fight, and ultimately I took a risk. His Flygon only knows Dragon Rush and Earthquake, so I could have pivoted around, but I didn't have anyone ready to take a Dragon Rush. I ultimately kept mishing in on the attack, which preemptively ended his life. People hype up the difficulty of random trainers in X and Y, but the random Alola trainers are in their own league. Losing Mishing really sucks for our morale and our standing in the run, and the timing could not have been worse. Or more neutral, because my plan to take on the Omni-boosted Totem Kommo-o didn't include Intimidate. Instead, I'll be utilizing Eandam's Topsy-Turvy. At the start of the game, I was kinda bummed that I didn't get a Drizzle Pelipper, but having a mon that can easily reverse any Totem's Omni-boost is seriously game-changing. Eandam has entered this fight at a lower level, but that was on purpose, I promise. I planned on delaying Superpower, which Eandam gets at level 48, to keep the current moveset, but it ultimately didn't matter. Spoilers. Psycho Cut will surely do some fine damage on Kommo-o now, but there's no way it one-shots. And now that Noivern is here, there's no way that Eandam will survive. Instead, I hard switched to WOS, who's still a reliable tank even in the late game. Let's go. Protect and Leftovers probably go without saying at this point, and on the following turn, where we take slightly more damage than I anticipated, WOS returns the favor with Icy Wind. I'm not worried about our damage on the totem itself just yet, but the damage and speed drop on Noivern was just what I was looking for. The only problem was that WOS is taking way more damage than I anticipated, so we won't be able to use a second Icy Wind like I had hoped. Either way, I need to hard switch, so to my other reliable tank we go. Pambush resists both Boom Burst and Dragon Claw, but we're not in the greatest position. Pambush's job was to take out Noivern, but with Gyro Ball being her strongest move, the Icy Wind might have been counterproductive. Lowering Noivern's speed ultimately made Gyro Ball weaker, which would be fine given Pambush also uses the Protect Leftovers strat, but the compiled damage of Screech into Drain Punch, as well as a neutrally damaging Air Slash, meant that Pambush should have Volt Switched out of there instead. The plan was to do so at the end of the turn, and get someone else in there without taking damage, such as QR Man or Mountie, in order to sweep. Regardless, we've got to get Pambush out of there, and with Noivern using Air Slash, there's only one option. I almost brought Haid to the fight instead of Mountie, and you know what? I'm glad I didn't, because someone would have died in that case. Even in their Shields Up form, because of the Icy Wind earlier, Mountie is the fastest thing on the field. Power Gem safely lands on the Noivern, finishing it off, and thanks to our extraterrestrial shield, Mountie barely survives a -1 Thunder Punch. Okay, so according to my calculations, in their Shields down state, Mountie's acrobatics could one-shot Kommo-o, but there's a 25% chance it doesn't. On one hand, we could risk it for the hype moments and aura, but on the other hand, this is what we have Query for. Truthfully, getting Query on the field was the original plan all along, and while it didn't work out like I had hoped, we still got there in the end. Somehow Query outspeeds the -2 Pseudo, and the battle concludes. Hopefully that was good enough practice for me not to mess up our fight against Ultra Necrozma, because I don't have anyone who could utilize Endeavor and a priority move. Duskmane Necrozma, on the other hand, was no biggie. Even without a VGC build, Lift was able to Unga Bunga his way through. Can I get a huzzah in chat? Just like against the previous totem, I'm leading with Eandam out the gate. This time, the only difference being his held Focus Sash. You know, just in case a +1 stab Dragon Pulse from Ultra Necrozma is strong enough to one-shot a Malamar. Just in case. Topsy-Turvy reverses the Omni Boost, but that level advantage means that this battle isn't over yet. I hard switch to Panbush on a resisted Dragon Pulse, and proceed to Protect Stall some recovery. Panbush's job is to further weaken Necrozma with Light Screen, and really the only thing that could go wrong is a crit. But we don't really have a way to play around that, so... Brother, I don't know what to tell ya. But that sucks! That's 2 incredible Pokemon obliterated back to back. I don't want to say I'm exactly fumbling the endgame here, but it's not looking good. I suppose we would be risking crits the whole fight anyways, but now we have way less wiggle room without the screen. Fortunately, I could stick to the plan assuming there will be no further crits, as QR Man tags in next. He would have been neutral to Power Gem, making a switch mostly safe, but even if we had Light Screen up, Photon Geyser would put me on Fraud Watch. Instead, with the Legendary being at -1 speed, QR Man can outspeed and pivot with U-turn. Lift absorbs the devastating signature move thanks to his Dark typing, and proceeds to sort of tank a super effective Power Gem before using Darkest Lariat to put them in the red. With the Citrus Berry taking Lift back to the green, Power Gem is the only thing that's baited, which is never enough to take out Gavin. She outspeeds and avenges Panbush with Shadow Ball, but given our huge losses, the run's demise may have only been prolonged. It should go without saying that having my one and only Steel type die right before the Fairy Trial Saga is a huge problem. Normally I would do some major reworking of the current team to prepare for these fights, but there really isn't much to do. Without any delay, we simply keep up our momentum and charge in. Unlike many of the recent boss battles, this one to my surprise went as planned. QR Man leads and takes out Mawile. His Protect confirmed that Mina's Granbull is going for Earthquake, which meant that Hade could pivot in for free. His typing baits Play Rough, that Gavin takes super well. Cursed Body activates, disabling the Fairy type move, but ultimately it didn't matter because Gavin is one of the best poison types we could have for this fight. We scout a move from Ribombee, and because we know she's going for Psychic now, Lift can absorb it and get his own one-shot with Fire Fang. Okay, I'm back in it. The next set of battles are had against the region's Trial Captains. As they're not the main bosses of the split, it doesn't take much effort to defeat them in a comparable manner to Mina. Of course, a Gyarados and Fortress would make things a little easier, but I must reap what I sow. Even if sowing freaking rocks sometimes did. Still, a +2 Ribombee can easily take chunks out of any team, between Dazzling Gleam, Draining Kiss, and Bug Buzz, not to mention its affinity to Dancing Quiverly. With all that in mind, you might be wondering why I'm leading with Eandam again. Well, Topsy-Turvy would be amazing, but oh wait, Bug Buzz is quite effective! Ah, I gotcha. Pony Pony Island gives us access to the type weakening berries, and Eandam can always live a non-crit with the help of one. I was kinda hoping they'd see that and set up Quiver Dance to get a bigger bang for our buck with Topsy-Turvy, but it's fine. What is less fine is that Pelipper came out to help. I was sure it would be Blissey, but it's cool. It's fine. Both Mons see a kill on Eandam from the range of like 2%, so I pivot out to QR Man who... Oh wait, Scald is rain boosted! Ah, I got you again! QR Man was holding the Pasho Berry, which lets him survive even in the rain. While Kiara Man has the powers to eliminate Pelipper in one hit thanks to access to Thunder Punch, Ribombee makes full use of this time to undo the special and speed debuffs with Quiver Dance. Her defense stat is still at -2, and QR Man still outspeeds at this moment. However, because of the rain, using Fire Punch now would more than likely get QR Man killed. I probably should have equipped Acrobatics, huh? The only Pokemon prepared to take a hit or witness another Quiver Dance at this point is Mountie. The shields being up provides them with the bulk to take even further boosted hits, and if the shields do get taken down, Mountie would simply gain the speed and power to win from there. Ribombee sets up after all, and follows through with a Dazzling Gleam that only puts us in the yellow. To my surprise and dismay, Shields Down didn't activate mid-turn, and Mountie is forced to use Acrobatics without our attack buff from the other form. But the Topsy-Turvy from before came through, because even still, Mountie's Acrobatics was enough to take out the totem from full. Our final island trial is complete, and honestly, thank goodness, because that could have gone way worse. However, that fight did ultimately put us into a horrible position. Depending on how familiar you are with the Ultra games, you might have already caught it, but I was tunnel visioning and leveled my team up to the level cap of 55. Makes sense, right? Okay, so what's the problem? Well, for some unknown reason, the level cap goes backwards after this fight by 1 level. Kahuna Ollivia's strongest Pokemon is level 54, therefore, that's the cap. Usually I catch this and set my levels accordingly, but I guess I've just been real out of it lately. It doesn't help that I usually kind of check out during this part of the game, but regardless, I'm only left with 3 usable Pokemon. And one of them is Ossel! Wait, why is Ossel still unevolved? Truth is, I delayed her evolution to get Shell Smash at level 50. Omastar doesn't get the move until post-game, unfortunately. Ossel may not have gotten the screen time she deserved, but now, due to my negligence, the entire run rests on her boneless shoulders. Ossel has been EV'd to guarantee the speed and bulk she'll need for the fight. We're also safe to use Shell Smash right away for 2 reasons. 1, Ossel is holding the one single white herb we get the whole game to cancel out the defense debuffs from our move, which I was hoping to save for the Elite Four. And 2, because Golurk always sets up Stealth Rocks if it doesn't see the kill. I would love to set up another boost, but I have no idea what the Golurk is going to use now, and if we lower our defenses, we could be one-shot. In the long run, it's probably for the best that Ossel takes the kill from here, because this is our most consistent way to win. Following Golurk is Mudsdale, who simply gets taken out by another Brine. This is perfect because not only am I able to rid myself of this thing for free, but Flygon is a very similar story. That is, as long as Icy Wind doesn't miss. And Ossel lands it. Taking those 2 out with Ossel was the best case scenario. When planning, I thought that the real run ender, Gastrodon, would come out earlier, but now this mon is the only one left. Our chances of success are much higher, but we're not home free. Really, this bulky slug isn't even the problem on its own. It's Ossel's own move pool. Thanks to Water Absorb, our best defensive moves are Icy Wind and Blizzard, both of which have sub 100% accuracy. And you know what that means? They're 50% accurate. Without a second Shell Smash boost, Blizzard won't get the one-shot, but all we could do is send it. And Ossel lands it! Alright, so Gastrodon has used Mud Bomb, which never kills without a crit. And thanks to the damage from Blizzard, all Ossel has to do is land one more Icy Wind, and we're home free. Ugh, man, I was really looking forward to using Ossel. Especially with the Ice Beam TM coming up, she was a pretty strong Elite Four contender. But what can you do, I guess, other than prepare for the level caps? I feel like overall I've played really sloppily in this late game. Of course, 2 of its 3 deaths have been due to RNG, but maybe if I had taken an extra second, I could have found a strategy that plays around those poor dice rolls. We're down on some incredible Pokemon, so it's about time I hydrate and lock in, because we've finally made it to the apex of Mount Lanakila. The final mon I could encounter, if I really wanted to, is the Ultra Wormhole encounter. I had heavily bet on the legendary I could get from here, just for the fun it would bring, but every Ultra Space Pokemon is level 60, the very level of How's Ace. If I wanted to use a mon from there, they'd be a dead slot on the team until that one singular fight. Considering that unfortunate truth, and the fact that I didn't pick up some of the heavy hitters I had originally planned on, I'll need a solid core team of 6. So this team will include Lift, Eandom, Haid, QR Man, Gavent, and Mounty. As you can tell, this team has a hyper-offensive playstyle. It isn't one that I usually go for, but given our options, I really didn't have a choice. As always, I'm sad that some of the team is forced to watch from the sidelines, but I can't focus on that now. All I could do is make sure we win. From the get-go, I'm playing with no holds barred. Aside from the holds brought by the hardcore Nuzlocke ruleset, of course. Gavent is leading in our first fight against Acerola, and with or without the help from the choice specs that we got from defeating a mid-game route boss, his Shadow Ball cleanly wipes out Bayonet. Now, thanks to the EXP share being turned on and everyone having just enough EXP at the level cap, the whole team levels up to 58. Unless hard level caps are coded into the game, since these guys leveled up after starting the Elite Four, this is legal. Palisand is one of 2 Pokemon that pose any threat to Gavent's attempts here, but her threat is her bulk, which Gavent can simply plow through. Delmise is no different, which brings out the other threat, Frostlass. Even without the specs, Shadow Ball would take her out, no question. However, she's just barely faster than my own Ghost somehow, so we need to get her out of there ASAP. My trusty starter is perfect for this matchup, and besides the possibility of some unreal confusion and freeze luck, Lift was always going to take out the Frostlass, with Driftblim soon to follow. This thing actually has a neat baton pass set. It's too bad the Switch AI works in a way that it always saves her for last. We're running a similar strat for Kahili. This time it's Mounty who's leading, and you could probably see where this is going. The opposing lead Braviary attacks first with Brave Bird, while Mounty remains in the green to use Shell Smash. I'm not gonna lie, the attack and speed buffs are great, even in this form, but I was kind of expecting our shields to go down, and even further boost our offensive presence. We're still able to outspeed and take out Braviary with Stone Edge, Thank goodness it landed. And the same can be said for Hawlucha with Acrobatics. But Mandibuzz is out next, and I was hoping it would be last. Mountie could take it out if Stone Edge landed, but I don't want to roll those odds again if I don't have to. Especially with punishment coming our way. Instead, I pivot to my degenerate strat of the gauntlet, E-Andom. Now's the time to finally run Superpower, which normally lowers attack and defense after every use, but thanks to Contrary, those boons turn to buffs. That along with Reflect and Leftovers means that we easily win this stall match, with surprisingly my only save play. Toucannon's a little awkward for me at this health, even with the Andom's buffs, but a Beak Blast would devastate anyone, so I need to risk it and set up Reflect. But then they use the Z move. I somehow didn't even consider that, but the Madman Eandom survives. Reflect goes up, which means I can hard switch back to Mountie. We're playing into crits left and right, but we found our footing. Mountie is free of their Rocky Shackles, but unboosted, they have to land Stone Edge to Oko. I was really hoping Toucannon would come out before Mandibuzz, but here we are. Toucannon heats up its beak, and Mountie misses. Kit survives the blast? Okay, buddy, you have one more shot to take out this bird. And Mountie does it. Let's go! Oricorio is last but least, and once we fire off Power Gem, we can move on to the third battle. I had a very similar idea for Olivia, and I really thought I got the routing down, but it looks like I still have a lot to learn. I'm leading with QR Man this time, and even though Rock Blast could take him out, the AI only sees the base 25 power from one hit, even though Rock Blast only hits 2 to 5 times. After we use Power Up Punch, we can be fairly certain Crush Claw would be used instead. The defense drop doesn't really matter, because now Close Combat is strong enough to knock out every one of Olivia's Pokemon, except for one. Due to QR Man's fighting type making him neutral to rock attacks, Probopass comes in next with the super effective Earth Power, which is the strongest move Olivia has for us on paper. I overlooked that. This thing has Sturdy, so QR Man can't do what he was meant to. My bad. I bring out Hade, who may not be limber, but even still has the tenacity to use Brick Break as many times as it takes to take out Probopass. Well, you know, actually, Hade won't be in the best position after our nasal nemesis goes down, so maybe I should switch back to QR Man to see if we could get things going again. Maybe I should have waited for the sandstorm to end. Alright, new plan. Back to Eandom. Really, Eandom and Superpower should be able to sweep from here, but there's only one problem. I forgot to heal the attack's PP. I mean, +2 to attack and defense should still be pretty good all around. Probopass gets taken out, Gigalith raises our speed with Bulldoze before eventually going down too. The Reflect helped out a lot. And even without said Reflect, Eandom would have survived even the Lycanroc's Z move. Man, what an incredible mon! I was actually bummed at the start of the game, thinking Drizzle Pelipper would be way better. But Eandom is actually the MVP. Blastus Cradilly, and with the special attacking Energy Ball at its disposal, Lift tags in to clean up the fight, bringing us to challenge Mullane. Now, Eandom wasn't supposed to show his whole hand by now, but push had come, and it was shoving. Originally, our Superpower Contrary strats were only meant to be used here, because Mullane could be a problem. I was mostly worried about his Klefki leading with Thunder Wave and giving me an annoying time, but it actually used every other move beforehand until it got taken out by a third Superpower. Them setting up Reflect along the way would be a problem for stalling our move PP, but before I began the fight, I remembered to use my one singular PP max and Aether. I genuinely never pick these things up consciously, but they always end up in my bag at some point. With 3 defense boosts, even Bisharp's X Scissors fail to do half. Metagross then takes a couple hits, but goes down just the same. And finally, Dugtrio just barely tickles Eandom with Earthquake. Wow, what a monster. Magnezone not only has Sturdy, but is a special attacker. So as we're underprepared to take special attacks as of now, I'm switching out to Lift, who's a really great backbone to the team now. The Spikes and Thunderbolt do sizable damage to him, but with a little Protect Leftovers action, we can use Fire Punch. As they use Screech, then we just use Fire Punch again to sneak out the win. I saved Mullane's fight for last, thinking he would be the scariest. But, man, I could have fought him first. I would say 10 toes down that Hau is the one that began my spiral in this run. Things weren't easy, but everything had worked out for the most part until he diced me up in Melee City. I don't think I ever fully recovered, and when prepping for this champion fight, I quickly came to the realization that he won't be any easier for my team even now. My lines have been planned out in full, and if I did everything correctly, then I'll need everyone to play their hearts out. And I may have to make some sacrifices too. Once again, I'm leading with Eandom. but not for the reasons I had before. How's Raichu attacks first, and Thunderbolt barely doesn't break half, while Eandom sets up Reflect. Risking crit after crit, we stay in to take yet another Thunderbolt, which Eandom survives and retaliates with a Night Slash that is strong enough on its own to get the KO. Tauros comes out next, threatening Double Edge, which is why I needed to set up Reflect. Not for Eandom, but for Gavent. Of course, she's immune to the normal type attack, but Tauros is faster and has Earthquake. Between the Reflect and her held Shuca Berry weakening the ground type attack, there's a chance we can live too, just in case Focus Blast misses. However, it doesn't, and Gavent manages to take out the Tauros in another single blow. I fully expected Decidueye to come out next with its stab super effective Spirit Shackle, but in classic cousin fashion, I planned incorrectly and have to steer. Maybe the AI calculated the switch including Reflect, and Noivern's Dark Pulses were the highest base power move? Well, if that's the case, good to know. So, due to this conundrum, I do need to make a sacrifice, like I said earlier. Everyone has a job to do in this fight, even now if I want to be prepared for crits and misses and all that. And with that in mind, it's with a heavy heart that I conclude that the Pokemon that needs to take the fall is Eandom. The run very well may have ended long ago if it weren't for his irreplaceable contributions. Oh, and he lived on 1 too! Man, you're not making this any easier for me, buddy. But like I said, everyone else on the team is prepared for backup in case things go even further south than they've already gone. Mounty takes his place with the hopes of saving everyone else from such a travesty. They tank a non-crit Dragon Pulse with ease to set up Shell Smash, and are intent on fully smashing through the remainder of How's team. Mounty wasn't present in How's fight last time, but this time things are different. We outspeed and use the +2 acrobatics to demolish the Noivern. Then Mounty does the exact same thing to evaporate the Vaporeon. They keep it up and obliterate the Crabominable, and last but not least, Decidueye is demolished. Mounty handily caps off this fight with a reverse sweep, winning us the championship match against How, winning us the Elite Four Gauntlet, and winning us the entire game. All things considered, sacrificing Eandom where I did saved the most lives. If I hadn't been able to get Mounty in then and there, and ended up going down my original routing, then there would have been way more sacrifices to be made. The Vaporeon in particular was a huge problem to play around, as its Hydro Pumps would have devastated anyone. I had a plan for that, but again, some bad RNG ruining everything was not out of the question. It was actually for the best that I was wrong, and Noivern came out first. Thank you all so much for watching today. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like and hype if you haven't already. It helps me out a whole lot, especially the hypes. And maybe leave a subscribe to stick around if you really liked it. I'm making new videos all the time, and have many more where this came from. But for now, that's all I've got. Thank you again so much for watching, especially if you're still here at the end. I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.